Captain Mark Anders stepped off the sleek silver ramp of his spacecraft into the grand hall of the Intergalactic Union's Central Dome. It was a place of overwhelming scale and splendor, where beings from countless worlds gathered under vaulted ceilings that shimmered with light refracted from distant stars. The other attendees turned to watch him. Humans were still relatively new to the Union, and every appearance drew interest. Standing out even more than Mark himself was his companion, a tiny, cheerful corgi trotting at his side, its short legs moving briskly, its tail wagging. The crowd's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Whispers spread through the assembly, punctuated by chuckles and sharp, derisive clicks from alien mandibles. Among the towering, angular forms of the Zathrex, the crystalline brilliance of the Andarans, and the feathered grace of the Aviolites, the presence of a dog seemed absurd. A broad-shouldered Zathrex emissary leaned toward his companion, his voice a low rumble that carried disdain. Humans, always dragging around their fragile, impractical pets. It's no wonder they're considered the galaxy's sentimental fools. Mark kept his face impassive as he heard the comments, but his corgi, unbothered, barked cheerfully at the crowd, eliciting more laughter. A feathery Aviolite ambassador tilted her head, her sharp eyes glinting with amusement. "Is this creature meant to serve a purpose?" she asked. "Or is it another example of humans' baffling need to surround themselves with useless companions?" Mark smiled, his voice calm but firm. "This useless companion, as you call him, has likely done more for me than any tool or machine could. His name is Max, and he's a friend, not a possession." The Zathrex emissary's sharp-toothed grin widened. "Friendship with animals? Your species clings to primitive emotional bonds. Evolution must have left your kind behind." Mark's jaw tightened, but he refused to rise to the bait. Instead, he met the emissary's gaze with quiet resolve. "Perhaps evolution gave us something you've forgotten: loyalty, trust, and empathy." The aliens exchanged looks, their amusement undiminished. An Andaran ambassador's crystalline voice chimed in, recounting how her species had long since abandoned emotional attachments, viewing them as distractions from progress. "On Andera, our partnerships are purely logical. We collaborate with machines and systems, not with creatures driven by instinct." Mark listened, his mind racing. He couldn't deny the cultural chasm between humanity and these advanced civilizations, but he also knew that their laughter stemmed from ignorance. "Humans didn't just survive on Earth because of our technology," he said, his tone steady. "We thrived because we learned to coexist. Our relationships with animals are built on mutual benefit. They're partners in survival, not mere pets." The Zathrex emissary waved a dismissive claw. "Survival through dependency. A clear sign of weakness." Mark didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached down to scratch Max behind the ears, the dog leaning into his hand with unguarded trust. The scene was met with more derision, but Mark was unshaken. As the laughter echoed, Mark's thoughts drifted. He thought of Earth, of the stories passed down through generations. He remembered the tales of humans and their animal companions, from loyal dogs guarding campsites to horses carrying warriors into battle. And then, his mind shifted to Earth's apex predators, the creatures that had once stalked humanity in the wild. He thought of their raw power, and how humans had learned not just to fear them but to respect, and, in some cases, form bonds with them. Mark's lips curved into a faint smile as an idea took shape. The aliens thought humans were weak because of their ties to cute creatures. Perhaps it was time to show them that humanity's strength lay in those very bonds, bonds that extended beyond mere affection to encompass respect and mutual understanding, even with Earth's most formidable predators. Without a word, Mark straightened and walked away, Max padding alongside him. The alien's laughter faded as he exited the hall, his mind set on the challenge ahead. The Union had underestimated humans, and he intended to change that. Mark stood before the conference council, a composed yet determined expression on his face. "I request a brief leave," he said, his tone steady but firm. "I need to return to Earth to retrieve a demonstration that will address the doubts you have about humanity's strengths." The room buzzed with murmurs of curiosity. The council members, bemused but intrigued, exchanged glances. The Zathrak's emissary leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in mock interest. A demonstration, you say? Will it be another cute creature to warm our hearts? Mark smiled faintly, not rising to the bait. You'll see soon enough. The council granted his request, their interest piqued by the prospect of what the human might bring back. As Mark left the hall, his mind buzzed with anticipation. He could still hear their mocking laughter echoing in his ears, but instead of anger, it fueled his resolve. This wasn't just about proving a point, it was about demonstrating the essence of humanity itself. Back on Earth, Mark wasted no time. He contacted a specialized team of wildlife handlers renowned for their expertise with predators. The leader, a grizzled man named Harris, greeted him with a raised brow. So you're looking for something that'll impress aliens? Not just impress, Mark replied. I need to show them why they're wrong about us. I need creatures that are powerful, intelligent, and capable of forming a bond. Harris led him to an expansive enclosure where two cougars, sleek and muscular, prowled with quiet grace. Their golden eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence, and their movements were fluid, almost hypnotic. These are Luna and Shadow, Harris explained. Trained for years, but they're still wild at heart. You sure about this? Mark stepped closer to the enclosure, studying the cougars. Their presence radiated raw power, an undeniable reminder of nature's untamed beauty. They're perfect, he said with certainty. Over the next few days, Mark worked closely with the handlers, immersing himself in the cougars' world. He learned their habits, their signals, and the subtle ways they communicated. Feeding them became a ritual of trust, each interaction strengthening their connection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mark sat in the enclosure with Luna. She approached cautiously, her golden eyes locking onto his. He extended his hand slowly, holding his breath. After a moment of hesitation, Luna pressed her nose against his palm, a gesture of acceptance. The warmth of her breath and the quiet rumble of her purr were a stark contrast to her fearsome exterior. Mark smiled, feeling a swell of pride and gratitude. It was moments like these that defined humanity's unique ability to bridge gaps, even with creatures that could easily overpower them. As the days passed, the bond between Mark and the cougars deepened. Shadow, more reserved than Luna, began to trust him, responding to his commands with precision. By the end of the week, Mark could walk beside them without hesitation, their powerful frames moving in sync with his steps. The night before departure, Mark stood by the spaceship, watching as the cougars were carefully loaded into secure, comfortable compartments. Harris approached, his expression a mix of skepticism and admiration. You're really taking them into space, he said. Mark nodded. They're part of something bigger now. This is about showing the galaxy what humans are capable of. As the ship ascended into the stars, Mark sat in the cockpit, his thoughts drifting back to the conference. He could see the aliens' sneering faces, hear their dismissive comments. But he wasn't nervous, he was resolute. Luna and Shadow were more than just animals. They were symbols of humanity's resilience, adaptability, and willingness to forge connections against all odds. The vastness of space stretched before him, but his focus remained sharp. The journey ahead wasn't just about proving the aliens wrong, it was about affirming the essence of what made humans extraordinary. The atmosphere in the grand hall shifted as Mark stepped through the towering doors. This time, he wasn't alone. Luna and Shadow padded silently at his sides, their golden eyes scanning the room with predatory focus. The crowd of alien dignitaries, accustomed to towering forms of logic and crystal-like precision, collectively stiffened at the sight of the cougars. Their graceful movements and sheer presence exuded danger, their lean muscles rippling beneath tawny coats. A murmur of unease rippled through the assembly. The Zathrak's emissary, who had so easily mocked Mark before, narrowed his sharp eyes, his usual confidence faltering. Are these predators? He asked, his tone laced with disbelief. Mark's lips curled into a faint smile. These are cougars, apex predators from Earth. They're not just dangerous, they're intelligent and loyal. He gestured for the cougars to sit, and they obeyed instantly, their bodies poised yet relaxed. Luna and Shadow aren't here to intimidate you. They're here to demonstrate what humans can achieve through trust and understanding. The hall grew quiet as Mark stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. These creatures are not domesticated. They remain wild at heart, yet we've formed a bond built on mutual respect. Watch. With a series of sharp, clear commands, Mark guided Luna and Shadow through a display of obedience and agility. They leapt gracefully through hoops, navigated a narrow beam with precision, and performed a synchronized pounce at his signal. The aliens watched, some with fascination, others with skepticism, as the Cougars completed each task flawlessly before returning to Mark's side, their eyes trained on him with unwavering focus. These demonstrations are more than tricks, Mark explained. They represent a relationship founded on communication and trust. Humans have learned to coexist with creatures that could easily overpower us. We don't dominate them, we partner with them. An Enderan ambassador leaned forward, her crystalline voice tinged with curiosity. Why? What practical purpose does this serve? These predators are dangerous. Why not avoid them entirely? Mark met her gaze evenly. Because survival isn't just about avoiding danger, it's about understanding it. By working with creatures like Luna and Shadow, we've learned to adapt, to think beyond fear, and to build connections even in the face of potential harm. The Zathrex emissary, still skeptical, clicked his mandibles. Impressive, perhaps, but theoretical. Loyalty cannot be proven with simple obedience. These creatures act only because they've been trained to do so. Mark's expression hardened. If loyalty is what you question, then let's test it. The room stirred as a challenge was proposed, a simulation to determine whether the Cougars would act to protect Mark in a high-stakes scenario. The aliens watched with a mix of anticipation and doubt as the hall transformed into a holographic battlefield. Mark stood in the center, unarmed, while simulated threats, robotic constructs programmed to mimic hostility, emerged around him. The Cougars tensed immediately, their ears flattening against their heads as they assessed the situation. Mark remained still, his calm demeanor a signal to the animals. When the first construct lunged, Luna sprang into action, her powerful body colliding with the attacker in a blur of motion. Shadow followed, circling Mark like a silent guardian, his sharp gaze scanning for further threats. The constructs attacked in waves, but the Cougars moved with precision and purpose. They worked together seamlessly, one intercepting an attack while the other guarded Mark's flank. Despite the simulated chaos, they never strayed far from him, always returning to his side once the threat was neutralized. When the final construct fell, the room was silent. Luna and Shadow stood by Mark, their breaths steady, their eyes alert. Mark knelt beside them, placing a hand on each of their heads. "This is loyalty," he said, his voice calm but resonant. "Not born from fear or dominance, but from trust and respect." The aliens' reactions were mixed. Some remained skeptical, unwilling to let go of their preconceived notions. But others, visibly moved, murmured among themselves, their earlier derision replaced by curiosity and admiration. The Enderan ambassador was the first to speak. "It seems we underestimated the depth of your connections. These predators could have acted on instinct, yet they chose to protect you. Perhaps there's more to your species than we assumed." The Zathrex emissary, though reluctant, gave a grudging nod. "It appears your bonds are not as trivial as we believed." Mark stood, his expression resolute. "Humanity's strength doesn't lie in our technology or physical might. It lies in our ability to connect, to adapt, and to work together, even with those who might seem impossible to reach. Luna and Shadow are proof of that." As he left the hall, the Cougars at his side, Mark knew the demonstration had done more than just prove a point. It had planted a seed of understanding, one that could grow into something far greater than he had anticipated. As the simulated battlefield dissolved back into the polished floors of the grand hall, the tension in the room gave way to a reflective quiet. The aliens, once quick to scoff, now observed Mark with thoughtful expressions. Standing tall beside Luna and Shadow, Mark broke the silence. "What you saw wasn't just a test of loyalty," he began. It was a demonstration of humanity's ability to build relationships with those who, by all logic, might be our adversaries. This bond is what allows us to thrive, even in the most challenging environments. He gestured toward the Cougars, who sat calmly at his side. Luna and Shadow represent more than survival or strength. They embody a mutual respect that transcends fear. It's that respect which has enabled humanity to cooperate not just with animals but with other civilizations, including yours. A ripple of agreement moved through the assembly. The Enderan ambassador, who had previously dismissed humanity's emotional bonds, stepped forward. Your demonstration has challenged our assumptions. Perhaps what we perceived as weakness is, in fact, a form of strength we have overlooked. Others began to murmur in agreement. The Aviolite ambassador tilted her feathered head, her tones softer than before. Our ancestors once partnered with creatures of flight on our homeworld. We lost that connection long ago in pursuit of progress. Perhaps there is value in remembering what we left behind. Mark listened, a small smile playing on his lips as the aliens shared stories of their own worlds. The Zathrex emissary, though begrudgingly, admitted, "Your kind has achieved something remarkable, forming bonds with those who might otherwise view you as prey. It is an admirable trait." A towering figure, the elder representative of the Galactic Union, raised a hand for silence. The room stilled as the leader spoke, their voice resonant and authoritative. "Captain Anders, humanity's ability to adapt and forge connections with creatures of great power and independence speaks to your species' resilience and ingenuity. It is clear that what we dismissed as sentimentality is, in fact, a profound strength. You have reminded us of something essential, the importance of unity, not just within species but across all forms of life." Mark nodded, gratitude evident in his expression. "Thank you. This was never about proving humanity superior or seeking validation. It was about sharing what makes us who we are. Cooperation, empathy, and diversity are not weaknesses. They are the foundation of our strength." He paused, meeting the gaze of each alien delegate. "Together, we have the opportunity to learn from one another, to combine our unique strengths and perspectives. Humanity is eager to contribute, but we are equally eager to learn." His words hung in the air, resonating deeply with the assembly. The once dismissive audience now regarded him with respect, their earlier derision replaced by curiosity and reflection. As the conference drew to a close, Mark lingered near the exit with Luna and Shadow. Delegates approached him, some asking about the Cougars, others expressing a newfound interest in Earth's creatures. The Enderan ambassador even inquired whether a visit to Earth might be arranged, her crystalline tone tinged with genuine curiosity. Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The shift in attitude was subtle but significant, a small step toward bridging the cultural divide between humanity and the galaxy's other civilizations. Later, aboard his ship, Mark stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the expanse of stars. Luna and Shadow rested nearby, their quiet presence a comforting reminder of the bond they shared. As he placed a hand on Luna's head, she nuzzled against him, a rare display of affection that brought a smile to his face. "We've done something important today," he said softly, as though speaking to the stars themselves. "Not just for humanity, but for everyone out there willing to see things differently." The Cougars remained by his side as he watched the galaxy unfold before him, a hopeful glimmer in his eyes. Humanity had proven its worth, not through dominance or technology, but through the quiet power of connection. And in that moment, Mark knew the seeds of change had been sown, promising a future where humans and aliens might learn from one another's strengths, building a galaxy united not by similarity, but by understanding.